What's up, everybody? Welcome. God dang horseflies. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video on Pure Panorama. In this video, I'm gonna talk a little bit about filter changing on your second gen 24 valve Cummins. Probably roughly gonna be about the same for like an older 12 valve into the third gen Cummins. Probably more along the lines like this for any of the Cummins platforms. As far as Fords and Chevys go, the Powerstrokes and Duramaxes, things could be slightly different just because different components, different setups, things like that. But I wouldn't think that they'd probably be too far off, especially things like fass lift pumps, airdog lift pumps. When I talk about those filter changes and the intervals, those are roughly going to be the same for any platform. Oil filters, I would assume, are going to be right around the same across the board for all of the platforms, but transmission filters are probably going to vary slightly across the different trucks, Powerstrokes, Duramaxes, Cummins. So you're going to have to look into that a little bit for whatever truck you have and kind of get a sense of when you should do stuff with the transmission filter and fluid. So I just cracked a water separator on my Fast Platinum 150 to drain that because I didn't do it the other night when we did the oil change on my truck. We'll just start with the fast lift pump. Typically, if you have a dual filter with the water separator and the filter on it, the average time span for changing those fuel filters on like the Fasses and the airdogs are about 10,000 miles or so, give or take. You can typically tell if you have a fuel pressure gauge in the truck, sometimes if you need to change the filters, because you'll see fluctuation in your fuel pressure or your fuel pressure will drop, indicating that your filter is probably gunked up and a little dirty. It's not doing its job to its fullest capacity, and it's probably time that you need to change it. When it comes to draining the water separator, during summer months or whatever, about every 3,000 to 5,000 miles or so is probably good to just drain it, and I'll go over kind of how you do that. Now when I drain that, it's very easy. You see there on the bottom you have the drain, so you just twist that open and basically just let it pour into a container to catch it, and you don't have to let it go for a while. You literally just let it go for even under a minute usually, because all of the water and stuff that you're trying to drain out is basically just down here in the collection bowl. And then anything after that, if you were just to let it continue draining, all you're going to be doing is letting good fuel go to waste and draining good fuel out of your truck. So you don't want to let that thing go for long. You just want to let it go long enough to where you're getting the water out of the collection bowl down here, and then close it back off and go on your merry way. So very simple and basic to drain your water separator. I actually will be changing mine out here soon. I put this thing on back during the winter months, and I want to get a fresh one on the truck here for the rest of summer going into fall and winter. And then once fall passes and winter starts to hit, I'll put another fresh one on the truck at that point. I'll be doing that. It's not gonna quite be 10,000 miles or so, but I do want to just get this one off the truck because winters up here in the north get pretty harsh, and during the winter months it's a good idea probably to drain your water separator every tank. When you fill your tank every time, it's probably just a good idea to get in the habit of draining your water separator each time you're at the pump, because during the winter months the fuel just loves to attract water and create more issues during those colder months. If you're down south in warmer climates and warmer temps and stuff like that, you don't have to worry about it as much, but it still might not be a bad thing to start practicing and getting in the habit of. Now, oil filter, see it buried down in there underneath your exhaust manifold in front of the turbo on these Cummins trucks. But with the synthetic oils that are out nowadays and everything, they all vary and stuff, and it really depends on what you do with your truck on how often you should change the oil and the filter. But we all know that you change the filter with every oil change. That's a given. And depending on what you're doing with the truck, I mean, if you're just like me and you're driving your truck daily to and from work, you don't really work it that much, maybe haul some scrap once in a while or some other stuff once in a while, but it's mainly just your daily driver and to have a little fun, then I typically change my oil about every 5,000 miles. And that's probably honestly still like very short intervals in between oil changes, especially with synthetic oils, because guys will tell you that you can go 7,000 to 10,000 miles with these synthetic oils, but I don't know. I just don't know how I feel about that, because at the end of the day, I want to know that there is good, fresh, clean fluids in this thing. So to me, changing the oil out every 5,000 miles really isn't that big of a deal. Now, if you were paying a shop to do it, they're gonna hit you for like $1.50 or more to do your oil changes on these diesel trucks. That could get a little bit pricey, but it's very easy to change your oil, and really it costs you half of that to do it yourself. So for me to pick up the supplies and materials to do it every 5,000 miles works for me. That's the schedule I stick to. Now, I have a video up about oil debate and what oils you run, what filters you run and everything, and everybody has their preference and stuff. So I will revisit that question and ask you guys to comment down below. What is your favorite oil filter and what's your favorite oil to run in your truck? But on average, about 3,000 to 7,000 miles as far as oil changes goes seems about right, depending on, like I said, what you're doing with the truck, whether you tow and work it like a dog, work it hard day in and day out, or you just daily drive it to and from work. Now, if it's just your weekend truck and you pull it out Saturdays and Sundays on nice days during the summertime, obviously you can get by a little bit longer, but it still wouldn't be a bad idea to change it out every few months, like a 3-month schedule or something, even if you're not putting that many miles on the truck. Now, if we're talking second gen 24 valve Cummins, even like third gen or 12 valve Cummins, I don't know for your Powerstroke and Duramax guys, but if we stick with the Cummins platform for this one, and we're talking about your stock fuel filter housing that is down here on the driver's side of your engine, basically about every 12,000 to 14,000 miles. Very simple procedure to do that. You do need, I believe it's an 1 1/8 6-point socket to get down here on the cap, and then you just pop that thing free, and there is a little drain lever that's on the front so that you can drain it out and try to break the suction, the little vacuum that it has. So you pop that sucker free, drain her down, and get your filter out, put the new one in, and then go ahead and close your drain off, your drain valve, make sure that's shut, and then go ahead and get this cap just hand tightened down, and then maybe your 1 1/8 socket on there, and just lightly give it a little crank. You don't want to over tighten those things because they will definitely break, or they can still leak. There is a little O-ring around that cap to seal it, so you do get a new O-ring with your filter when you get a new one, so you definitely want to make sure you change that. And like I said, do not over tighten those suckers down because they will break. Now on to the old transmission, man. There's probably gonna be some debating over this one, and that's fine. Guys do different things with their trucks. They use them for different reasons, different purposes, and because of that, that will warrant different time intervals for your filter changes or fluid changes when it comes to the trans. But roughly shooting at like an average or so, about a once a year type of thing for your transmission. Someone like me, daily driving the truck to and from work and lightly using it for other work purposes, or like light hauling a trailer every now and again on there, once a year, that's about plenty. If you're not beating on the truck and trying to whoop up on it, once a year you would be safe doing the fluid change and filter change on it. Maybe checking the bands to see if they need adjusting, which that's a whole separate video of talking about what you can do while you have the pan off in the transmission, changing the filter and the fluid. So we're not going to dive into any of that in this video. This is gonna stay on topic with filters and stuff like that, but we will talk about the different stuff you can do in the transmission, or to the transmission I should say, if you're down there changing the filter and the fluid. It all really is going to depend on how much you drive, and how many miles you're going to put on your truck within that year or whatever. You may not have to do it once a year if you're driving the truck hardly ever, but it's one of those things, again, if you're anal and nitpicky and you just want to keep things clean and up to par with the truck, it might not be a bad idea to still change it if you don't drive the truck or work it that frequently, just to keep the fluids fresh in there. Now there's also a couple different things you can do while changing the fluid in the filter, because if you're changing the filter on the transmission, then you are going to be doing the fluid as well. So if you were just to drop the pan and want to change the filter, you're probably going to need about, I would say, maybe like 4 to 7 quarts, just to be on the safe side, to make sure you have enough to put back in after you drop the pan and all that fluid comes out. I'm trying to think back to when I did mine last time. I think I had like 6.5 quarts that I actually put back into it. But some guys will vary. One guy might need to put 4 quarts back in, while myself, I might need to put 6.5 quarts back in. It could vary a little bit, I guess, by application in truck. But if I had to put an average out there, I would say probably like a once a year type of deal for dropping the pan on the transmission and getting some fresh fluid in there and a new filter. Now the other option you could do, as far as when you have the pan off to change the filter and you already know that you're going to have to put some new fluid in there, is you can do more of a full fluid exchange, where you could pop a return line off and attach a hose to it and run it into a bucket or a container, preferably, if you could, some type of clear container that is capable of measuring, so you can measure the capacity of fluid that comes out of it. And what you would do at that point is you would start the truck up and set your parking brake, and then shift the truck down into neutral and just let it pump that transmission fluid out through the return line and that hose into your container. And then about when you get like 3 or 4 quarts out of it or whatever, go ahead and add some more fluid into the transmission, put it back in park, add some more fluid to the trans, and then go ahead and do it again. And what you're going to be doing at that point in time is basically cycling the fluid through the transmission and through the return into the bucket, so that you're pumping new fluid throughout and trying to flush some of that old fluid out of there, so that you are ensuring that you get the majority of that new fresh fluid into the transmission. These transmissions, I think, are 17, 18 quarts of fluid is what they hold, something like that. So when you just drop the pan to do the filter and you're looking at putting maybe 4 to say 6 quarts back in it, that's nothing compared to how much fluid really is held in that transmission total. So by popping a return line off and adding a hose onto the end of it to lengthen it, and then starting the truck and dropping it into neutral to flush some of that fluid out, you're gonna end up better off, because you're gonna get more new clean fluid in there, rather than just adding a small portion of clean fluid but still having some of that old nasty dirty stuff in there too. Now I know some guys are probably gonna go down in the comment section and go at it saying, no, you shouldn't do that, that's a bad idea, because by doing that you'll dislodge some debris and whatever else in there, and that will be floating around inside the trans, can get lodged up in between parts, cause damage, do harm. So that is a concern, yes, but if you are sticking to a regular maintenance schedule and doing this stuff, not neglecting the truck and letting it go thousands and thousands of miles in between filter and fluid changes, you really shouldn't have much to worry about. You should be fine to really drain most of the fluid out, or cycle new fluid through it and try to get some of that old dirty fluid out. Yes, that is a concern of getting stuff worked up in there and possibly damaging some components within the transmission that way. But I don't know. I would have to say that I would feel better knowing that I had more of a clean and healthy fluid in the transmission than a lot of dirty fluid with a little bit of clean fluid in there. But we can touch base more on that topic of exchanging the fluid out like that in another video. I do have plans to do the filter and fluid on mine, and we will see how that fluid looks once we start draining it out. And depending on how it looks at that point in time, I may or may not pop a return line and do what I just told you about and start exchanging the fluid to try and get that old crap out of there and replace it with more new stuff. But I will make that decision when the time comes, and solely based on how the fluid looks once I drop the pan down. If the fluid doesn't look like it's in the best of shape, then I will just add what came out when I drop the pan, and we will run it a little bit, and I will change it again fairly soon and continue to do it that way so that we can slowly start to work some new fluid into the system. And then once we've done that a couple times and swap filters and fluid 3-4 different times or whatever, then I will look to pop a return line off and go ahead and do more of a full fluid exchange, if you're following what I'm saying. That is enough out of me though, so I would love to hear from you guys in the comment section what your time intervals are as far as filter changes go and stuff like that. So let me know how often you change different filters and what filters at what time intervals, all that stuff down in the comment section. I would love to know, and I believe that it's good for everybody just to get some varying opinions on things like this. So let's see it down in the comment section, and as always, hit that like button before you leave. They really help the channel grow, getting the videos recommended to new people, hopefully to bring us new family members. If you're new to the channel, stopping in for the first time to check it out, hit that subscribe button and become a family member. Join the community here on Pure Panorama. And I will see you guys in the next video, which will hopefully involve me taking an HX35 turbo off my 2001 24 valve Cummins to install a new rebuild kit into it and then get it back on the truck so that we can hopefully have a little bit more fun with it, not blow it up in a week's time. And yeah, I don't know, that's it, man. Peace. Little fun fact for you, look at all my trophies from when I was a kid. I used to race quarter midgets from 5 to 12 years old, and that's just some of the trophies.